What's up, Quakes fans? We're here with another episode of Tectonic Takes. We are coming off the back of a wonderful 3-0 win. Devin, how are you feeling after that win?
I feel fantastic. Not only for the fact that I've kind of blown the media off my chest, or the first time being a member of the media, but also winning 3-0 at home. It's a great feeling. What are your thoughts, Abram?
I mean, yeah, we had a similar thing last season, right, where we beat RSL really bad. And both cases where, like, RSL was really struggling last year at that time, and then SKC also. It's just they have a hell of a time, even getting a roster together, to be honest. But no, it was a great game. Very glad that you were able to experience that for your first time in the press box. I, Speaking of press box, they put my boy they put my boy Devin outside in the cold, and I felt so bad because like I'm just there with my laptop in the cozy press box, and Devin's like fighting for his life in the
It's
cold.
gonna be the coldest game of the season, I reckon, and I was outside for it.
It could very much be, but I mean, you can't say it's not worth it, right? I mean, I thought you did really good in your. We're going to talk a little bit about your experience because that's probably more important than the game. There's going to be a lot of games this season. You're not going to get another first time doing a press conference, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. I remember you looked over at me and you were like, "This is good," and I told you to shorten your question just because like the last bit was like.
Mind you, this is the post game press
Yeah,
conference.
we were talking to Daniel Mooney, who of course got the brace and a clean sheet. Great game from Mooney. We'll talk about that later. But you wanted to ask him a question about his partnership with Roberts, and also something about like the being in a three at the back instead of a four at the back, or being at a four at the back instead of a three. And I was like, for me, my issue is that I complicate my questions. And so, like, for your first one ever, I was like, shorten it, and that's a perfect question right there. Just the partnership with Roberts, he's gonna love talking about that. Just shorten it, and you asked it perfectly. You had it written down, and you asked it, and then he was super excited to answer, just like I knew he would. And then after he answered, you were like, I really wanted to talk about
I
that type of
really
thing.
wanted to add the additional details. So the
Yeah.
full question
Mm-hmm.
was going to be to Daniel Mooney, asking him, out of the 4 games, you've had 3 clean sheets with Reed
Oh,
Roberts in the
okay.
back. What are your thoughts on playing with Reed Roberts and getting those clean sheets? I'm paraphrasing here. There's
Yeah,
probably a
yeah.
more refined version of the question. But I wanted to add the fact that they've had 3 clean sheets out of the 4 for the Earthquakes, which I am obviously presenting to you now,
Mm-hmm.
which is an amazing stat. We haven't seen that in a while. 3 clean sheets out of 4 games, even if it's preseason. I know it's
Right.
preseason. Fans will have their opinions on that. But 3 clean sheets out of 4, and Daniel Mooney and Reed Roberts kind of facilitating that, I think is fantastic. And I really wanted his thoughts on it. But you did say to shorten it. As the very first question asked in the press conference for me,
Mm-hmm.
I took you up on that, and I was like, okay, that's fine. Maybe I can include that with Bruce Arena, which I ended up not doing that.
Yeah, and no, I didn't realize the way you wrote it. Like, really, it was really shorthand. He like literally texted in his phone, and he showed me like what he was writing, and I was like, so yeah, I misinterpreted it as like you were asking about the difference between a back four versus a back three, because they played together in a back three last season. So I thought what I thought you were asking, which is a little bit more complicated than what you intended to ask. So that's my bad in misinterpreting your question, because I do think that that's an interesting stat, and I do think you would have had good things to say about that as well. But moving on to the other question of the night, we talked to Bruce Arena as well, of course, which for me is the scariest person to talk to on any given day. I don't remember what I asked him. I was just glad I got a question out, but I think you asked him. Oh, I asked him about Vieira. He was very complimentary of Vieira. Devin, can you
Yeah, he
recap
loved your question.
how your question went?
I mean, my question was based on Jonathan Gonzalez. I just wanted to know what his thoughts were on Jonathan Gonzalez's Quakes debut, because obviously he made some debuts, or one debut, with Minnesota United. So this wasn't his first time in MLS. But with the Quakes, it was nice to see him on the field, and just signing him the day before I wanted to see kind of exactly like how Bo LaRue went through, except Bo started and Jonathan came off the bench. I just wanted to see what Bruce's thoughts were on the matter. And he laid out a good answer. He thought, Jonathan played well. He was somewhat impressive in the minutes he played, and he's hoping to see more of him in the coming games ahead. So I do think he would pose a good threat as a super sub. And I'm not going to say that Bruce Arena agreed, but it seemed like that was the way Bruce was heading towards when answering the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of keeping the ball, Jonah Gonzalez, as he likes to be known, and Bo LaRue, they're both very good on the ball, and that's obviously really good to have. And yeah, I was curious, like, because his main concern with Bo LaRue, right, was his physicality, and Jonah Gonzalez is a much smaller guy. So that's kind of curious, like where he sees Gonzalez at this stage of his career versus Bo LaRue, who he was, obviously he liked him. He started him a lot of the games, but he had some criticism. So that's the main thing that we were, looking at. Bo LaRue was like, is he going to bulk up? He did end up bulking up, and is Bruce going to trust him more now that he has? And he started again. So and he played really well. I don't know if you want to get into that, Devin. But I think I'll start with the first topic. Nico Chikaris, Bo LaRue's midfield partner, ran the game against Sporting Kansas City. Didn't get any direct assists, but was super influential in every single goal scored. What are your general thoughts about how he played?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote down some general statistics here that you can find on MLSsoccer.com, but you know, he leads the league after the first weekend, after game week 1, with 8 key passes. I think that that kind of contributes to most of our arguments in favor of all of 2025 as to why he deserved more minutes, because he produces impressive numbers. And now that he's been given the 10 and he's been given the almost official cam role in a 4-2-3-1, he's showing it by, giving players like uh, Ricketts and Judd and Buddha all these opportunities to take shots on net. And here he is with 8 key passes, one I guess secondary assist, but an assist nonetheless. Um, and part it was like he was directly involved in basically all 3 goals in the game. And it could have been like 6 goals in the game, and 2 of those could have come directly from Nico Tsikaris as well. So yeah, he played a direct involvement, and if it wasn't for Muni's 2 goals, I would have put Nico as man of the match.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's really hard in those circumstances when the player gets multiple goals. And not to be, I think Muni played an amazing game. If he didn't score a single goal, I think that he had an incredible game, right? Clean sheet, very good on the defensive end. Obviously, playing out from the back, fantastic at that. But he did score those 2 goals. And so, even though Nico was like everywhere, making everything happen, probably, other than the goals, more influential than Muni on this game. The fact that he scored those 2 goals are the big reason why he won. And also, in my opinion, Sporting Kansas City didn't look like the worst team in the world until Muni got that first goal. And it was kind of a fluky goal, but he managed to finish it. And then after that is when, to me, Sporting Kansas City just completely fell apart. All the wind in their sails was knocked out of them, and we're obviously able to take advantage of that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think SKC had a decent first half until the very end. Actually, I wrote in my game notes while we were watching the game. I think it was in like minute 39. It just looked like SKC was kind of wearing down after all their defensive efforts, because the Earthquakes were absolutely dominant in possession for most of the first half, and it seemed like SKC couldn't keep up with defending the Earthquakes with back and forth, side to side passing and movement and shifts. And um, it was like 3 minutes later we got our first goal, and then 4 minutes later we get our second goal. It seemed like SKC kind of capitulated right off of that, and it was very evident in the media area where they started to slow down. And I'm glad that the Quakes picked up on that and kind of turn on the Jets. Muni getting the first one and then Judd getting the second. So as much as pundits and fans and analysts alike will say that SKC is definitely worthy of last place and the MLS rankings, the preseason rankings. I think it's worthy, but I think they also showed good structure until halfway through the game, and then that's when everything just kind of went to shit.
For lack of better words, I agree. Um, no, and so I want to pivot a little bit to the pressing structure, which is we go into tactics a little bit on this show. I'm gonna try and get us more toward that tactical talk. Not that Ivan didn't like tactics, but I love tactics, and so that's what I'm hoping to talk about more. When we were watching the preseason games, I was watching the pressing triggers to see like when are they doing it, and I wasn't really sure about them. It was like obviously the shape changed. So in defense, when the other team has the ball and they're playing out from the back, our wingers drop very deep. Devin, you agree? We both noted this. They drop very deep, right next to their fullback on their respective side. And Nico goes forward and kind of is parallel with Judd, and they're just kind of like waiting. They're not running straight after the ball. They're not like immediately trying to get the defender to play a long ball or anything. They're just waiting. They're in the spaces where they can't really progress forward that easily. And I think that in itself, without talking about what we will discuss in a minute, in and of itself is very helpful, and I think it's a good way to not commit too many people forward and then leave spaces behind to be exploited. And then also the triggers that I mentioned previously are when the keeper is distributing out from the back. It's not just the center backs. They kind of like chill out when it's the center back distributing, but when it's the keeper playing out, in the time the ball is traveling from the keeper to the defender, they go crazy. Buddha is on that guy like white on rice, and especially the six. I've noticed that when we see the opposing keeper distribute to the six, oh my God, we are on that guy. We saw a corner kick come from that this last game, but also Devin, if you remember, when Edwin Mendoza was on the pitch and got that back heel assist, what happened? Right, the keeper played it out to the six. Edwin pressed that guy, won it back, and then played it back heel to Nico. Nico shot it, and Buddha got the rebound. That's very clear, and that's something that we saw. In my opinion, we saw again on Saturday, where he played to that six, he's not going to turn around. He is going to have a hell of a time, receiving that ball. What are your thoughts on the pressing structure overall?
I mean, you listed a lot of consistencies from preseason that carried over into the not inaugural, but the home opener. And one of those was also the fact that, yeah, we press high. We win possession of the ball in our attacking half of the field. And that's something I had noticed, I think, in game 3, like you just mentioned with Edwin Mendoza. Yeah, when Edwin wins the ball back, it's in the attacking half of the field. Buddha many times in against Sporting Kansas City, won the ball back in the attacking half of the field. That goes the same with, either Bo LaRue, Nico, other players that had pressed that high line and won the ball back to, trigger a counterattack, which I believe is how Nico was able to retrieve possession, pass it out to Jamar Ricketts, then to Preston Judd, and then we get the goal. So there's many instances where we have a new triggering high press system, and it's working. It's paying dividends for us. This coming along with the fact that we have a bolstered midfield. What Bruce kind of has alluded to in many press conferences and questions asked of him is addition by subtraction. And I am now starting to fully understand what he means by addition by subtraction. Because we had a different midfield set, we had a different attacking set, we had somewhat of a different defensive set. And the guys, like Nico, were substitutes last season. They're coming onto the pitch as starters this season, and players like Oseni Buda is capitalizing on SKC and opposing errors. And especially, I want to give credit to Ronaldo Vieira here because he was an engine. You know, he's getting a lot of praises in our Discord server mid game. A lot of fans are very happy with him. I'm very happy with his performance against Kansas City. You know, there were a lot of moments where SKC players, attackers, were almost in behind on goal. There was a point where Daniel Muni got dragged out with Benji Kikanovic on the right hand side, and the Kansas City player managed to send a through ball thread into the middle. And who was there to pick up the pieces? Ronaldo Vieira with the sliding challenge. You know, that's the kind of six we're looking to see, or we were looking to see in 25, and now we're actually kind of reaping the rewards of building a solid foundation. And Ronaldo Vieira is basically taking care of business.
Right, and he wasn't exactly fit when he came to us in the summer transfer window last year. And so the question I asked Bruce was basically, how do you feel about his impact now that he's had time to, integrate with the team? And he was just as complimentary as the Discord was. Very happy with how he played, and I mean, the stats show it. He got a lot of tackles. He won the ball back a lot, and he was in really key areas, like Devon pointed out, to cut out dangerous opportunities for their opposition. But yeah, before we move on from the press, I want to say that what I want you guys to take from this is basically that it's not a relentless press at maybe a Red Bull would have. It's not crazy like that. It's a very opportunistic press where we look at the right opportunity and then we really, then we start pushing. And then if we can get those moments where we know that we're going to have a good chance of winning the ball back, we commit to it. And we've been pretty successful so far at executing. So if we can continue that, this will be a very dangerous team to play against. What else are we going to talk about? We want to talk about Bo LaRue and how he played on Saturday.
I was pretty impressive with Bo LaRue, and actually, there's many players who now have point tallies and assists to their system because MLS is allowing secondary assists, which I think is really cool. It kind of sparked a debate this afternoon in our Discord server, but I actually really like it because it portrays a new variation of involvement in goals and who's directly involved in the last three or the last three important touches of each goal, an important play. And Bo LaRue was one of those players. I want to honorably mention Reed Roberts as part of that play because he was the engine that could. He hustled down to the corner where there was a loose ball, won the 50-50 battle, played it back to Bo LaRue, who chipped it over to Daniel Muni and headed it off the far post and in. That was almost Alan Gordon-esque 2012, believe it or not, to win the game for the Earthquakes against Galaxy. That's the kind of vibes that I got from that goal. Brilliant floater up to Daniel Muni, who was somehow able to flick it back on target. But these are the kind of setup plays that we see from Bo LaRue that if I were to go to other podcasts, I would boast about Bo LaRue for this exact purpose. He knows exactly where his teammates are. He's got the awareness. He's got the technical ability. He's got great hold-up play. I think there was a moment in this game specifically that Abram was impressed with where Bo had sent a long ball over the top to Benji Kikanovic, who then kind of took it to the end line, played it back to Oseni Buda, who had a wide open chance to put it on frame, which he did, and the keeper barely, got his fingertips to it and flicked it over the crossbar. But, plays like that is what kind of impresses Earthquakes fans and I think is going to catch the attention of the rest of the league at some point.
100% agree. Well, not 100%. I think that the stats wise, to go back to that, I'm looking at Reed Roberts' stats right now, which is why I think is pertinent. Uh, I agree that hockey assists, as we've come to call them, should count as assists. But I do think that they should have their own categorization as well if you're trying to differentiate the two, because it paints a clearer picture of like who's actually getting that final assist versus like the guy who's setting up the pass that is the assist. And obviously if the goal ends up if the ball ends up in the back of the net, same thing, but like it is useful for people who are really into stats. But speaking of stats, let's look at Reed Roberts, 89 pass percentage. Uh, he tried some passes forward. Like I think he had like a cross, like he tried to whip in. It didn't end up going anywhere, but that is really nice to see. And he has the ability to put in that cross, which is the main thing for me. I'm like, can he do that, or is it just gonna be like, because some center backs can't play with the ball, but he's not one of those. He can definitely. He has the chop. MLS has a kind of what's it called, limited availability of stats, but what we have here is that he won 66% of AO duels. That's up 11% from last year. Obviously, only one game, so a much smaller sample size. We'll see how that progresses throughout the season. Three clearances, which is very good. Obviously that contributes to our clean sheet. Only one foul this game. It wasn't a particularly dirty game in my opinion. Obviously there was some fouls and some kerfuffles. But LaRue was getting really into it. I don't know if you noticed that, but he's bringing the passion as well as everything else he brought last season. Um, and to look at the foul, so he had one foul in this match on Saturday. In contrast to that, in 14 games played last season, he got 19 fouls. And obviously, there will be a lot more opportunity for that to happen, but he was averaging over a foul a game. So far, it's only one foul a game. So, looking better than last year, but still 100% rate of getting fouled, which is obviously that's fine for a center back. I'm not expecting them to have a completely clean game. I don't think he got a card, so that's the main thing. As long as he's not racking up cards, not too worried. But no,
Did anyone get a card? Honestly,
I think there might have been. If you give me a second, I can confirm that for you. Um,
yeah, because I genuinely can't think of a moment in the game where it was like a yellow card worthy tackle. There could have been like persistent infringement maybe, but I genuinely can't think of a time where the
Yellow
ref.
card, Daniel Mooney in the 36th minute. I don't remember what it was for. But according
Oh, it
to
was when he pulled him
Google,
down. I think. Yeah.
maybe that could be it, like tactical foul or something.
Yeah.
Um, but no, yeah, we only got one yellow card, and that's the only yellow card in the whole match. So yeah, pretty good. And
I also think the ref was actually somewhat impressive too, because
yeah,
in podcasts like these, we usually kind of refer back to the refs as kind of giving us a really hard time in every game, but I actually think like whatever the rules and regulations or whatever referee styles have been implemented in the introductory part of the season here, I think it's working because I didn't have any issues. I know other games may have had some significant issues, but for the Earthquakes versus Sporting Kansas City, it felt like a evenly refed game.
yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I didn't think there was anything too egregious. There was some like throw-ins that I thought could have gone the other way, but obviously that's like one of the most minor things. And the ultras were not. They wouldn't agree with you. They have their iconic chant that we will not repeat on this podcast because we can't. Um, but obviously that kind of helps us. It gets us an advantage. I have no problem with them doing that. But an interesting stat. I didn't know if you know this, but we only had 39% possession.
That doesn't sound right.
No,
It
but
really doesn't sound right.
but every 13% possession we got a goal. So so yeah, and that kind of like goes back to the pressing system, right? So we were able to win the ball back in high areas and make chances immediately. So even though we only had 39% possession, we got 5 shots on target, 11 shots overall, and was it 3.9 xg? That's a lot of xg for
Which
a game
is
like this.
what, second in MLS and XG?
we're doing very well in XG, and obviously it's very early in the season. We acknowledge that, but we are an earthquake podcast, and we don't always get to be excited about things like this. So you
We'll
know
take what we
we're gonna
can.
savor it. You're right.
Yeah.
No, very poor showing from SKC. They got two shots on target. Both were saved by Daniel. One of them was an incredible save. This game could have been 3-1 if Daniel did wasn't a spider monkey. Do you remember the chance I'm talking about?
I believe so. It was a shot to the near post, and
Yeah.
Daniel kind of threw his body down and somehow made the arm save.
Yeah, acrobatic save. But other than that one incredible save, it wasn't a very active game for Daniel. He did his job, but he didn't have much to do. Um,
I
but
think that's credited a lot to the CBs and Ronaldo Vieira for
yep,
preventing any shots from reaching Daniel as
yep.
well.
And obviously Benji Kakanovich and Dewan Jones were the fullback partnership today. Not today, Saturday. I think they did a fine job. I couldn't really tell you that I saw anything that was disappointing from them. Um,
Something I did pick up on that, and thank
sure.
you for reminding me. When defending on the left side, actually most times, whether it didn't really matter what side possession was being brought up on, but it looked like there were many times where Jamar Ricketts sat as deep as Dewan Jones,
Yeah.
and became it like the back line became a back five.
Mhm.
That's how deep Jamar Ricketts was sitting. I know Aseni Buddha dropped probably as far back as Bo LaRue, to be like a wing back in a way, but like a more centralized wing back, if that makes sense. Like another DM. Ricketts was sat amongst the back four to make it a back five, and that kind of pushed Dewan Jones to kind of step up.
Yeah, like I said earlier, they kind of like they were like this together, like both sides. They were like this. Buddha isn't as defensively minded as or defensive minded as Ricketts, who played left wing back all last season. So he naturally isn't going to be dropping quite as deep. I did notice that Ricketts was very far back, and I think that helped us out. I think that SKC had a really hard time getting to the end line. They had a really hard time breaking this down in general, but that end line option for them, it was unavailable completely. They locked it down, and I think that's kind of what the tactic is. Where like we don't know what's going to happen, but they're not going to win the battles in the wide areas of the pitch, and I'm super happy about that. That's really huge. Um, but Ricketts as a winger is something we've seen all of preseason. We don't know if that'll continue once Timo Werner's here. We don't know what the actual formation is going to be at that point. But he did get an assist, so how would you say he is doing in this fight for his maybe spot in the future?
I think Ricketts is really slotting a ticket for a starting position if Werner is to play in another position. I really like Ricketts' ability to find space off the ball, and I like his distribution. I really like his distribution in the offensive third. It's pinpoint accuracy. He's very optimistic anytime in possession. It's pretty hard to stop Jamar Ricketts when he has the ball at his feet. I've mentioned in past episodes that we kind of watched him closely, and he was struggling somewhat to finish his chances. But as a winger, you're also equally asked to distribute the ball for others to create chances as well. And he's doing just that. He got his primary assist based off the Nico pass, or from the Nico pass, and he gave it to Preston Judd, dead center in the goal. He somehow managed to slot it between three SKC defenders, right to Judd's feet, who put it away. You can't really ask much more of an impressive feat than what we saw out of Jamar Ricketts against Kansas City. And if he continues his form and Timo Werner is to be a sub, in the second half of Atlanta if he's to get his visa, as Bruce was unsure of coming time to match day against Atlanta. Um, and Jamar Ricketts impresses again with either a goal or another assist. It's going to be hard to ask Ricketts to step back into a substitute position because he's putting the numbers forward. Um, or he's at least he's put one number forward. But if he was consistent or is to be consistent, you can't bench a player that's in form. So it's a tough call for Bruce, honestly, and I'm glad I'm not in his position to make any of those calls because the option of Timo Werner, a world class player, versus Jamar Ricketts, who's currently in good form, is a tough call to make.
I agree, and I think the most like obviously that ball over to Judd, very well placed. It's not easy when moving at pace. Judd is moving. The defenders are all moving, and to pick out the trajectory of the pass, brilliant. But it's also the movement off the ball. A lot of players will make the kind of inside run. They'll want to go to goal themselves. Chicho, 100%. Every time he wasn't going to make the wide run into the box. He wanted the ball to score basically. And Ricketts, he did his job better. He spread out the defense where like if he's running out there, then if somebody follows him, that's more space in the box. If they don't, then that's him, free. But no, he made a really good run off of that Nico, stampede. Like he picked up the ball in midfield and they could not stop him. That's what I've been saying about Nico is that like he's a young guy, but he does already have that pace. He's not like crazy fast or anything, but there is a huge difference between a slow center attacking mid and one that can move. It is mobile, and Nico is quite mobile. And just the awareness to not just be able to run fast, but also to cut off the defender who was running like behind him, to cut off and move to his left, so he has no angle to take the ball away from him. Beautiful, and then just the placement of the pass to Ricketts, who made a great run, and then Judd, has the easy job there. And that's not to say his job was easy, but everyone coming together to make that play happen. It was beautiful to see. My favorite goal of the game by far. Obviously, Muni had really. I'm really happy for Muni, but just aesthetically, the Judd goal was the best of the game. What else?
I'm honestly inclined to agree with you there. As much as I really like the Muni goal, the flicked header, um, you can't draw up much of a better play holistically than the Nico Ricketts Judd combination. I still think about that slot or that slit between those three center backs or the three defenders very often since it's happened. It's almost like one of those FIFA sweaty goals that you would see, but in real life. And I'm just glad to be there to have witnessed it. To be honest.
Right. We had a few more opportunities to get even more goals. 3.9. Like I know that it says three and we scored three. You with 3.9, you could have scored more goals. And unfortunately, a lot of those misses are due to one Jack Scan, and it's hard to blame him, but it's hard to absolve him here because one of those I felt like it was kind of like in his stride. It wasn't really like set up for him to. It was an awkward shot. He should have done better, but it was awkward. And then the other one, the second chance, it was like, oh my god, dude. I know it's on your left, but he kind of scrambled to get his right foot on it. You got to do better. Not saying I could do any better than that, but you would really want the player coming off the bench for your right winger, to be able to finish there. I think Buddha, in that position, I know he was playing different positions at that point, but Buddha would probably finish there. And I like Scan, so I want to see him keep getting those opportunities, and hopefully, with time he will start finishing those and keep getting those chances. But really unfortunate for him there.
Yeah, I actually want to add to that. I will get to Jack Skane in a second, but I do want to cover the overall substitutes that we made throughout the game. And it seemed like, we were 3-0 up, but Bruce did not want to take his foot off the gas. Bringing on Jack Skane, bringing on uh, Jonathan Gonzalez, bringing on, uh, hold on, brain fart here.
Harks.
No, not Harks. The
He did bring on
fullback.
Harks though.
He did. The fullback. Can't think of his name. Brazilian.
Victor Costa.
Yes. Bringing on Vitor Costa. Those players added a lot to our attack, and it seemed like 3-0 wasn't enough for Bruce. He wanted to go for the throat for a 5-0, 4-0, whatever 6-0 victory like we had versus DC United last year. Um, and that's something that Quakes fans had specifically asked to improve on. Obviously, they didn't go to the FO, they didn't go to the front office and like barge into the office and be like, "We want more attack." No, it's just something that fans had a general opinion on, and Bruce is kind of taking that front and saying to other teams, "Hey, we have a lead, but we're not going to stop attacking," which I'm very thrilled to see. But back to Jack Skane, I do want to give praise to Skane, because to have those kind of chances, you need to put yourself in the right position off the ball. Jack Skane has great off the ball awareness, and he does a great job putting himself in dangerous positions. I just think it's really unfortunate that, you know, he wasn't able to finish those two chances we thought should have been buried. But you can say that about a lot of current and former Earthquakes players, So it is game one. Let him dust the dust off his shoulders and try again next week. I know he has it in him. We saw it in preseason. Hopefully he can not do it again, but hopefully he can improve his form against Atlanta and be given another opportunity. Yeah. Any thoughts?
No, I 100% agree. I think that we don't want him to miss again, but we do want him to have the opportunity to miss again in a weird way, right? We want him to not miss this time. And he's a player that is, like you said earlier, very optimistic, very positive, and very aggressive as well. So I have no doubts that if he keeps getting the minutes, he can continue to get those opportunities. But that brings us to our game against Atlanta United coming up on Saturday, and it's going to be the Grateful Dead day at PayPal Park. Devin, outside of soccer, Grateful Dead mean anything to you?
It means something to my dad, but I actually did not know who the Grateful Dead was until last year.
I definitely heard of them, but Devin and I are both. I'm 25, I think 27, 28.
28.
Yeah, so we're a bit on the younger side in terms of people who know about Grateful Dead. Not for us, obviously. Not everything can be for us. So Star Wars Day was for us. We'll take that. Last year, that was pretty cool. But
I
no,
can't wait for Hello Kitty night either.
yeah, that's gonna be really fun. I'm actually really excited for that one. But regardless, like I said, not for us, but we will be there. Uh, we'll be covering this game. But the main thing I'm looking forward to is the football itself. Uh, Atlanta United coming off the back of a 2-0 defeat at the hands of Cincinnati. Not a great showing from them. We saw the highlights, so obviously we couldn't watch the whole game. We could have, but we didn't. And something that we saw was just, for me, their attack. Like they were taking shots, but they didn't look very dangerous. What are your thoughts, Evan?
Yeah, I was kind of digging into their game stats. Obviously, I had heard that Evander was subbed off early in the game, so that kind of affected Cincinnati's attack. Um, but I don't think it really mattered. They ended up winning 2-0 anyway. Atlanta did lose the possession game versus Cincinnati. Their stats had showed Atlanta as a high fouling team. There were many attempts of sending through balls, lots of which were called offsides. Um, you know, with Tata Martino's style play, that seems like a very attacking thing of him to do. They love balls in behind. Miguel Almiron is back on Atlanta United, and he showed somewhat impressive performances on the right hand side, but ultimately didn't really put anything away or didn't contribute to too many dangerous opportunities. And I think that's a testament to the rest of the team, not just Miguel Almiron. But something that's advantageous to the Earthquakes. They love playing from the back, which, as we were just talking about, Bruce's system can reap rewards from. What do you think could happen in Atlanta just based off the fact that we saw Atlanta playing from the back?
Yeah, I mean, playing from the back isn't too uncommon, but what I did see that stood out to me was that they could have lost by more because sometimes when they put out from the back, they would just pass it to the other team that's coming out of them, and just they had a really hard time with that. 44% possession doesn't really show a team that's like amazing at passing out from the back. We didn't watch the full game, but some of the highlights where they tried to pass out from the back and then got countered immediately because of a terrible miss kick. And it was up to Cincinnati to put it away, and they didn't until the last 10 minutes of the game. So I think that that does bode well in our favor. I think that we also have a pretty fast counter ourselves, especially if Timo Werner ends up being able to play, which is an if, not 100%. But Bruce said that if he is here, then he will play. That I think that's what I remember him saying.
Yeah, he went back and forth between if and when.
Yeah.
Like it seemed like, yeah, he will be here, and then started off by saying if he's here. So, we're not exactly sure exactly what to present to you viewers, but there's a high chance that Timo Werner could, be in the 18 for the game, but not a guarantee, unfortunately.
Right, and I think that bodes well in our favor because Atlanta like to play with a very high line. There was a few chances where I was like, "Oh my God, they're playing with a high line and they're just getting, ripped apart." And they keep doing it, and they just don't. They're very stubborn about it, and I'm like, if you can't, play out from the back, you have to not have a high line because you're gonna get torn apart. And obviously, they didn't exactly get torn apart, but I think that's more on Cincinnati than anything else. With Evander in the team, I think they win this game by a wider margin. Um, yeah, I think that we should have a really good chance in the game. The thing that I think Atlanta has on their side is that their wingers are very strong. I mean, technically, not exactly physically. I'm sure they're fine physically, but what I mean is that they're really good at dribbling. They have a lot of technique. We saw some shots from them that if a better place, could really challenge the goalkeeper. Thankfully, I'm not really scared of conceding shots from outside the box with our keeper. Daniel is pretty safe. Very, very good keeper that we have. And then also, honestly, I think that if Benji can lock up Wilfred Zaha, he should be able to lock up most wingers in this league. And that's, I could get, burned saying that, but that's what it
Yeah,
looks like
knock
to
on wood
me.
right now, Abram. Knock on wood right now.
Knock on wood. No, I think that our fullbacks should be strong enough. I also think that Danny Mooney is the fastest center back in the league, and so if Benji can't catch him, Danny Mooney can. So I'm confident about this game after seeing what happened against Cincinnati. Maybe Tata Martino gives him the hairdryer treatment, and they sort everything out. I just don't see that happening in a turnaround of 1 week. I think that we have a good chance in this game. What do you think, Devin?
Look, I'm fully aware that every team kind of, changes their tactical style per team. They do their research, they change their style to present themselves in a better opportunity for next game. I get it. The current form that we saw versus Sporting Kansas City with that high press, with our way of possession, with our system of late goals, late opportunities, late chances, whether they've whether our team puts them away or not, they're still presented as dangerous in front of the net of the opposing team. I think we have a good advantage versus Atlanta. You know, the last game they had versus Cincinnati, they conceded 2 goals in the last 10 minutes of the game. Their first goal was from a counterattack and a near post header from a set piece in the 90th minute off of a corner. What was our first goal? A corner kick from Nico to Judd, flicked off the goalkeeper. Daniel Muni put it away. Second goal, counterattack. Nico to Ricketts to Judd. Boom, in the back of the net. All these things that Cincinnati exposed Atlanta are the exact same things that we exposed on Sporting Kansas City. So unless Atlanta comes to San Jose with a brand new tactical style, I think Tata Martino's philosophy is at stake.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're not saying that San Jose Earthquakes are going to win the league or that we're like the best team ever. I think that it's like Pokemon where our types, match up well. It's like a fire type versus a grass type. And so I think that we have a really good chance of winning this game for that reason. I don't think that if we have the Miguel Almiron of old, I think this is a much different game. But he hasn't been that player so far. So with that being said, I think that we can win this. We're not going to predict the score because we don't do that anymore. We don't do that. But before we close the show, I want to do a shout out to. I don't know his name. He didn't tell me his name, but this big guy walked up to me as I was waiting for Devon to do his media stuff. This guy walked up to me, and I was like, "Oh God, what's happening?" And then he puts his fists out like that, and he's like, "Hey, I like your content." I was like, "Oh my God, thank God you like my content." Because if you weren't a fan, I would have to run away, and I don't like to run. Yeah, so shout out to that guy. You know who you are. Nobody else on Saturday, introduce himself. So if you introduce yourself, I'm talking to you. I was a little bit unsure of your intention when you walked up to me, but I'm glad that you like our content. And for anyone else, if you happen to see us walking around PayPal Park, feel free to say hi. We are very nice. What do you have to say about that, Devin?
Some of us are nice.
No,
I'm
no,
kidding. I'm kidding.
we're all very nice.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Devin is nice.
Um, I try to be as polite and smiley as possible in every situation. But yeah, I think that wraps up this episode of Tectonic Takes. I will not be here for the Atlanta game. I will have a ski weekend break, so I'll be on the slopes while you're at the game. So I do hope that you, the viewer, and you specifically, Abram, enjoy the match. And I'll end up seeing you guys the week after that.
I'm looking forward to it, Devin. But until then, go Quakes.
Go Quakes.